am Maggie with Maggie's Magic Cookies and Maggie's Magic Stencils. I know that in the cookie world, everyone finds a technique that they like and then tweaks it just a little bit until they find what works just for them. So I'm going to show you what works for me when I am using Silkscreen Stencils. So these are some of the Silkscreen stencils that I have made. You can't really see them very well, but this one, let's see if you can see it. This one says thank you. And this one is a puppy. You'll be able to see it when we make it. And this one is a rainbow. There is a learning curve when you first start using Silkscreen stencils, but once you get the hang of it, they are so useful because they don't need the little bridges to help hold the middles in that plastic stencils have. They're great for PYOs and words because the centers don't fall out. Let me show you some of the supplies that I will be using. The first thing are these scrapers, which this is actually a full-size scraper from Cookie Countess that I have cut in half. And you can also use, these are from Cool Whip containers that I have cut into the same general shape. They're basically a little bit larger than a credit card. So they work the same. They're perfect flexibility, exactly right for scraping on the Silkscreen stencil. Then these are also from Cookie Countess. They're called thingamagenies. But you can also use just a plastic knife. Later, I will also be using a Stencil Genie, also from Cookie Countess. And I use a eyedropper with water in it for thinning down my icing. I actually keep my icing in these little tubs. I have just basic colors, so black and gold and blue, because I use those a lot, that I keep in these tubs. And then I have other colors that I can use as needed. And then over here, I have a wet washcloth and a dry washcloth so that I can wipe up any little spills that I need to wipe up. So let me show you. Let's get started. The most important thing is figuring out the consistency of your icing. So the icing consistency, people always say it should be about the consistency of toothpaste. I think it needs to be a little bit thinner than toothpaste. So this is too thick. So right here, if you look at it, it's a little bit too thick. Don't know if you can, this is the first time I've ever done a video, so I'm not quite sure how well you can see it, but it's too thick. So you take the water and just put in a couple drops. Seriously, a couple drops is all you put. Mix it up. Still too thick. Couple drops. Mix it up. That's better. Now, it's a little bit thinner than toothpaste. For me, I like it a little bit thinner than I would use for the plastic stencil because it needs to get through the holes of the silk screen. Yeah, there we go. So that's about what I want. I want it to fall off if I shake it. So it falls off if I shake it, but it's not thin enough that it drips off, but it kind of falls off if I shake it. So that's about right. Now, so I have the icing on my spatula, on my thingamagenie, And the way that I am going to practice is actually on this cardstock, because I prefer to practice on cardstock first so that I don't potentially ruin my precious cookies. So here's what I'm going to do. So this is a rainbow PYO, and I'm just going to set it down, and I actually take the scraper and I put the icing directly on the scraper. Some people put the icing on the stencil. I don't do that. I put the icing on the scraper and I hold down the stencil. If it's on the cookie, then I hold it on with the Stencil Genie. I'll show that in a minute. But in this case, I just hold down the stencil and I just swoop once. Swoop, and that's it. I'm done. If I missed a spot, I can swoop a second time if I need to, but that's it. Just one time, lift it up, ta-da! You've got it. Right there. You've got it. All done. So you can go to another spot so that you can practice again. You use the same icing that was right there on your scraper. Swoop across. If there's too much on there, use a different scraper to scrape it off. Because if you use the same scraper, you're just going to put more on there. Use a different scraper to scrape it off. Lift it up. You got it. That's it. You don't have to scrape and scrape and scrape. Just swoop, scrape it off once. Really fast. Really, really fast, really easy. So that's with that kind of a stencil. Now I'll show you, here is one that is even more complicated. So here we go. I'm going to show you a slightly bigger design. So I'm putting a little bit more icing on there. This one is another PYO. This one has a lot of detail. So I'm going to have to scrape a couple of different spots. And I'll have to use that second scraper to get the extras off. Get all the extras off. Pull it up. Ta-da! Look at how much detail is on that dog. There's no way that you can get that much detail with a plastic stencil. Again, you just lay it right back down. Use the same icing that was on that scraper and scrape it on there. You can use the other scraper to pull it off. Oh, looks like I missed his tail. Pull the icing off, because you want to get as much icing off as you can. Swoop, and there you've got it. Lots of details, super easy. If this starts getting dried out, because that will happen, you can just scrape this off, scrape it right back in to the pot. Don't know if you can see that, but I'm just scraping it right back into the pot. Mix it back up. Add a drop of water if you need to wet it down a little bit more. Put it back on. Put it back onto your scraper and keep going. And you can just keep going and going and going. The only time that you have to stop is if you start getting dried bits here in your stencil. If you start getting dried bits so that it's not going through onto your cookie, then you need to go rinse it out, dry it, and then you can start over. But you can usually do 10, 12 easily, more than that, depending on how fast you are, before you have to rinse it and start over. It really depends on how fast you are. Now, you can also do it directly on to cookies, obviously. This was just showing you how to do it to practice first. Now let me show you. Oh, I have a nice, this is why I have this, so that I can clean up my messes. Okay, so let me show you how to do this with the Stencil Genie. You'll notice that I have this outline here. So I do this on a paper towel. This is the outline of my Stencil Genie. So that's where the Stencil Genie will go. And I will put the stencil right there. So if the stencil is right there in the center, and I know that it's centered, and I know that if I put my cookie right there in the center, then the design will be right there in the center of the cookie. Then after, so here I go, I'm going to right there. Need to do the second one. There we go. And here we've got, thank you. So there is my cookie with thank you on it. I could have done that in any color. And I know that if I put the next cookie in the exact same spot, and if I put this Stencil Genie in the exact same spot, then even if I can't see where I'm putting it, I know that if I scrape the exact same spot, I'm still going to be directly in the center. So that's just an easy way of keeping track of where your cookie is and where your design is going, so that you are able to always put it in the same spot every time. So that is how I use my Silkscreen stencils. Once I'm done, I've done all of my cookies. You can do dozens of them really fast, very easily. And again, you have so much details, so many options. These PYOs are super fun because you can have all sorts of details that you can't have with plastic stencils. And it's just so much easier and cleaner than airbrushing. It's just wonderful. So once you're done, you rinse everything with warm water, hang dry or dry whatever way you want. I usually just hang them to dry. Sometimes I put them in my dehydrator to dry if I'm in a hurry. And that's it. So if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully this has been helpful. As I said, this is my first ever making a video. I hope it made sense, and I hope you were able to see everything. Thank you, and let me know if you have any more questions. Thanks.